And we have invited representatives of three wonderful groups who are here to help you reach a first level or a next level or some more full realization of your talents and skills and potentials on the Miskatonic repository. So I'm going to ask them to introduce yourselves and to say a little bit about your groups, and then we'll get more into the mechanics of what you do and how you do it, and how people can benefit from that as we go. So let's start with the esteemed Ashley Warren, and we'll go from there.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Ashley Warren. I'm really excited to be here. I'm the founder and director of the Storytelling Collective. We run what's called the RPG Writer Workshop, where we have a series of programs for writers all over the world who want to get started writing tabletop RPGs. And our flagship program, the Write Your First Adventure Workshop, includes a Chaosium path in partnership with Chaosium. And we try to help people who want to write for Call of Cthulhu get started and kind of figure out what their writing process is. So I'm really excited to be here. We are thrilled to be a sponsor of this convention and have really just enjoyed getting to know this whole community.
Great, thank you so much. And everyone, you'll notice that as a sponsor of the convention, that comes with a perk. You'll notice that Ashley has both a moral advantage and a healthy, glowing aura. That too can be yours if you sponsor us next year.
It's worth it.
Bob, you want to talk about You Too Can Cthulhu?
Absolutely. Hey, thank you so much. Really appreciate the opportunity to speak to everyone here today. My name is Bob Geis. I am the founder and organizer of You Too Can Cthulhu. We are a group that runs convention scenarios. So we travel to scenarios around the Midwest United States. Gamehole Con is our next one up. We also go to Gary Con and Gen Con and a few other shows, always looking to expand there. And essentially what we do is we really like to get in front of fans and deliver great role-playing experiences.
Great. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Really, really excited to see you here. And Newman.
Hello. I am very lucky to be the host of the Miskatonic Playhouse, which we are a relatively new feature in the MR community, in the Chaosium community, but we're very happy to be here. I'm very lucky that I'm here, and there's an entire team of people behind me. They're just, I mean, not literally behind me, but we as the Miskatonic Playhouse, we kind of have a bit of a mission statement, and that is that we know there are over 1,000 MR scenarios on the Miskatonic repository, and we aim to play them all. We aim to put them out there as well. Our big thing is about the community and getting the community to know each other. So whether that's just, you know, we're writers and we want to know each other's writing, or whether that's, you know, we want to interview people like Heinrich Moore, who's been in one of the talks, some of the other Shoggoth. Evan, you're on our list. You're going to get hit one of these days.
Sounds good.
But probably Bob, Ashley, Bridget, you know, people like that, but also just those people that we kind of we all want to know about. For example, on one of the talks yesterday, we had Alex Gillot, who's fantastic, and we've done a bit of work at the Playhouse with him. Oh, spoiler. But it's making sure that people like that and like us, we all get into the same group and we all get to know each other. Yeah, I think that kind of does a bit of what we do.
That's great. Yeah. So if you don't mind, I'd like to then kind of ask about the origin story, right? The collective has been around for a while and is extremely successful. You Too Can Cthulhu has been around for a while, and you guys are kind of in a groove. The Playhouse is a startup, you know, in the internet slang phase, so we'll call you a startup. And since your founding is probably more recent in your mind, I'd like to start with you. You know, where did the idea come from, and then maybe more importantly for those of us who are doing this as a hobby and trying to find the energy for it, you know, kind of how did you make the leap from idea to a thing that's actually happening for the Playhouse?
Yeah. Okay, so doing the usual thing. So I'm actually here, and Ashley's kind of responsible for me being here, if I'm honest, because I was one of the many people that go through the Storytelling Collective. And through that, what's really, really interesting, and by the way, Ashley, I'm a big fan, you know anyway. But what's really interesting is that there's a couple of us in the Playhouse, yeah, more than a couple of us, and we kind of went, oh yeah, I remember you were writing at the same time as me. I remember your scenario coming out, and I did this and you did that. And It just so happened we were in the Miskatonic repository Facebook group, which is absolutely fantastic, an amazing source of, community and everything that we're all about. And one of my kind of colleagues and friends in there, Stuart Sellens, was kind of chatting about something about, oh, wouldn't it be great if we could do this? And I kind of went, yeah, wouldn't it be great? And he went, yeah, it would. And I went, let's do it. And opened a Discord server. And within a few days, we had the most amazing and diverse people from within our community. There was no reaching out from beyond our community. These are all people that are just, they love the game, they love the MR community, they love the storytelling collective, they love the idea of let's get together and do something that supports this community and emboldens this community. And we kind of just ended up having a big old chat like this one night. I was really proud that I came up with the name Miskatonic Playhouse. I was really proud of that. And I'm kind of putting my foot down and saying they can never kick me out because I came up with the name. But in a year's time when I'm kicked out, you'll probably go, oh, do you remember when he said? So just lots of, just as any conversation in the MR Facebook group kind of goes, it was one of those conversations. It moved onto a Discord channel. And before we knew it, we were going, right, this is what we want to do. Just watching Hyrank's comments. This is what we want to do. This could be our mission statement. We had an amazing individual, John Hedge Hall, who came on with a brilliant background in business and has just given us very strong directions to go in. We've got some amazing, our editing team is absolutely amazing. And these are guys that are putting hours and hours and hours into the work. We've got affectionately, we've got Pete, we've got Cosmic. We've been very lucky to kind of leech a little bit off Graham Patrick as well, who's just a very good friend of Hedge, but just brilliant advice to us. So yeah, we're just one of those really lucky kind of spontaneous explosions of creativity.
Yeah, I got to sort of watch, from the sidelines as that all ignited, and it was really stunning to see the latent power that you guys tapped into there. I had no idea that much interest and energy was out there to not only get it going, but now to sustain it now that you're underway.
Just to add, and I promise I'll stop talking in a second.
No, please.
I tell you, the Council of Stroggoth yourselves, Heinrich was an absolute kind of gem for us as well, and Bridget as well, and Alan as well. There's been so many people that have already kind of established in the community, and they were just fanning the flames. They said, "Look, you're onto something here." Yes, you are a gem, Heinrich. There was just like a proper fanning the flames. There was, we had an idea, we wanted to do something, and I suppose exactly what the Council of Stroggoth set out to do was push and promote stuff like this. And we were very lucky to be the recipients of that.
Yeah, and we're happy you exist. keep existing.
We will.
All right, Bob. So that's sort of a different project you've got going on there. So how did that start?
Yeah, so let's go to the Wayback Machine. Around 2006, as when we got started, we had been running convention games, and enjoying it quite a bit. But we wanted to do something a little bit different. So there was an abandoned brand, so to speak, called U2 and Cthulhu that was out there. It was a little starter game that nobody really paid attention to or cared much about. So I asked Dustin Wright, who works for Chaosium, who was organizer of those events at the time, hey, Dustin, do I have to run the U2 and Cthulhu demo game, or can I write something on my own? And he said, yeah, sure, you can go ahead and write something on your own. And so I did that, and I asked no follow-up questions and basically just took it and ran with it. So essentially, we went from there to where we're now running a series of events at Gen Con. So I'll kind of walk you through how our Gen Con events go. We run several different tracks of games. One is the Black Letter event, which is our flagship event where we run 12 4-hour 7-player games. One player from each game advances to our Black Letter event. And so the Black Letter event is a live action game with we're up to the point now where it's about a 1-for-1 GM to player ratio on that game. So a lot of action happens in that. And so it's something a lot of players look forward to. We've taken that show on the road, if you will, and we are now running those at Gamehole as well. So, and a lot of our scenarios are just really designed for a couple of different reasons. One, we want to get players really excited about playing Call of Cthulhu at home. And a lot of people don't have, especially with what we've been through the past few years, they don't have an opportunity to get in front of people in person to game. And so, kind of fanning those fires at conventions where we can get in front of people, is really important. So again, just generate a general enthusiasm for the hobby. The second is we like to have all of our games be very, very friendly to new players. We're talking about new players to Call of Cthulhu or new players to role playing in general. And so all of our games are designed to be beginner friendly. Any rules that we actually employ are taught on the scene. And we really emphasize more about the story and more about role playing rather than deep mechanics and crunchy numbers. So, it's been successful. We are now we've been doing this since 2006, and we're ready to go again. And so beginning the new season, starting the top of the year. So we're all set. So it's just, that momentum. And really, again, next week we leave Thursday to go up the game hole. And it's such excitement and such, I can't wait. I'm going to be counting the hours till I get there in front of people and really just, bring in the enthusiasm, bring in the energy, and, delivering an experience these guys are going to talk about for the rest of the convention and maybe a little bit longer. So that's it.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
And so Gen Con is in Indianapolis.
Yep.
Game Hole is where?
Madison, Wisconsin. Just a little ways up north.
Okay. So you're sort of up and down the sort of Midwest corridor.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Very cool. All right. And then Ashley, you've obviously touched infinitely many lives with the collective and been the springboard for all kinds of things. So how did that all start?
I'm always so touched to hear that because the RPG Writer Workshop was kind of a fluke thing that came about. In 2018, I had been writing adventures for D&D that I was publishing on DM's Guild, and I was just all in at that point. I was just really obsessive about writing adventures, and so I was getting a lot of questions from people about how do I also write one-shots. And I have a background in education. I've worked with writers of all ages. I taught college English. And so I have a little bit of some fundamentals in not teaching writing per se, but teaching kind of the writing process and helping people really find the process that works for them. And so I was like, what? I think I know enough about adventure design at this point to at least provide people with a little bit of a framework. And so I put together what I called the RPG Writer Workshop. It was just an email series at that point, and I just put the link on Twitter, and I was like, if you're curious about my writing process, here you go. And then 500 people signed up, and I was like, oh my goodness, okay. So there's clearly a need for some sort of educational framework, because what we found is that there's a lot of educational programs within tabletop, but they're usually about game mastering or dungeon mastering, and any sort of writing related educational programs are usually a little bit more high level, about game theory, and they get kind of really into the weeds before a lot of folks have really learned kind of the basics of their own writing process and the very basics of adventure design, kind of like what Bob said, rather than going straight into the mechanical aspects of game design. There's so many other things for people to learn and practice before that point. And so I started running the RPG Writer Workshop twice a year. In 2021, it became a storytelling collective, because we realized that our community was really interested in learning about things other than tabletop. But what we learned through tabletop in our community is that people, really, there's a lot of best practices when it comes to writing that kind of transcend the medium. And that's really just learning what your creative process is. So when it comes to the Write Your First Adventure Workshop, that's really what we focus on, is just the kind of a sampled process for people to emulate, with the hopes that they'll take what they like and what they don't like from it and make it their own. So we never say this is the only way to write an adventure, because there is no one way to do that, but there's a lot of kind of tips and tricks that people can develop. And I think providing people with a framework is just so vital for any sort of creative endeavor. So 2018 was our kind of foundation, and it's been just kind of a wild ride since then. Last year, we met with Chaosium and formed the official, the Call of Cthulhu path. Now it is the Chaosium path, because we have a RuneQuest path as well, and we've loved working with Chaosium. And since I feel like I'm kind of an interloper in the Call of Cthulhu space, because I come from D&D, And so I'm not necessarily like a pro at Call of Cthulhu, but I've absolutely loved the community and everyone we've met through it. And again, what we found is that the kind of general framework that we established for D&D writers does kind of work for other game systems, including Call of Cthulhu. We've added some kind of custom things to that path because obviously every game system is different and there are nuances there, but we really just want to get people to the finish line and get excited about writing adventure content and starting their own projects in this community. It's okay, Ashley, we all come from D&D. Yeah, I feel like I'm just like one of many people that in 2017 got like really into D&D 5th edition, but that was my gateway. And even though I've been a lifelong geek, I didn't really have a lot of opportunities to try out other game systems. So I feel very fortunate to have found communities like the Call of Cthulhu community, through D&D and that kind of very mainstream journey, I guess. But yeah, so that's kind of the story of the Storytelling Collective and the RPG Writer Workshop. It's been like just amazing to see our community grow, and the things that people do like kind of on their own, like to start these new projects and meet other people around the world has just been awesome. So, and Bob, I'm really jealous that you're going to Gamehole. I feel like that's like my favorite con. It's smaller than like Gen Con, which is kind of overwhelming, but it's such a cool atmosphere, and the people there just like are so nice and passionate about gaming. So I'm excited for you, but also very jealous.
It's a great place to go. It really is.
Yeah.
That's great. And as people in the chat are kind of revealing their entry to Call of Cthulhu via D&D, I should be transparent and say that I came into the hobby through playing Vampire at 14 with a bunch of other 14-year-olds, which might be the worst possible way to enter the hobby. It's just we were not ready for that whole world, man. We were just spent a long time unlearning things that we sort of self-taught there. But now it's a good system. I mean, it was a good system then, but I think I'm old enough now to do it properly. So one of the things that really appealed to me about this mix of panel participants is that you're all kind of addressing different audiences and different needs. If I can sort of summarize a little bit, so the Storytelling Collective is all about getting your first piece out there, getting in touch with your creative process, learning what works for you as a writer, right? You Too Can Cthulhu is about how you can sort of grow the hobby. I'm assuming, Bob, that you would not be against people sort of taking what they learn, an experience with you and going to their local cons, right? And kind of taking
absolutely
those
no
skills.
way. I mean, really, again, it's just all about driving people to the hobby, really. So however they choose to use it once they've been exposed to that knowledge.
Yeah, exactly right. The horrible exposure and then spreading the misery to others. And then from the Playhouse, there's the audience of kind of writing for the stream, right? Writing for audio plays and actual plays. And I wanted to give you a chance to talk about some of the tips or the challenges. And I think this is where we'll spend a good amount of time in writing for those different audiences, because we all create for the repository in one sense or another, but we all have different goals. And we maybe, someone is just about ready to write their first scenario, or someone is now comfortable writing, but they don't have a good local community. And so they say, I really need to go and work up the nerve to take this out to other people. And others might be saying, I really want to pitch this to the Playhouse and see if I can get this recorded somewhere. So I think going, reversing again from the direction we went last time, starting with Ashley, with you, if we could talk about what are the fundamental things that people learn for that goal of getting their first piece out.
Sure. Well, we always kind of start with two fundamentals, one of which is to form a good little community for yourself as a creative, as a gamer. I mean, I guess most people would call that networking. I think it goes a little bit beyond networking, because it's not just about the professional benefits you'll get from meeting other people. As you can see from everyone on this panel, like we're all very community based, and our endeavors thrive on having a good inclusive community. So that's really the first step, I think, for someone who's interested in any of this, is to try to meet people. I know it's tricky. Online is kind of your best option if you can find folks online. There's Discord servers. There's a Facebook group that everyone mentioned. The Miskatonic Facebook group is absolutely wonderful. I love it. The atmosphere there is so supportive. people are really willing to help out new folks, so you don't need to feel, sheepish about asking questions. There's no question that's too simple. So I think online is a good place to start if you're not sure about people in your local community, because what you'll probably find is that there are people local to you. Like even through the workshop and Storytelling Collective, I've met people here in Reno that I didn't know were here in Reno, but they're like, wait a second, you're based in my city. And then we've been able to actually have real world connections that way. So sometimes if you start online, you might actually find people in your community. But the internet, for all of its flaws, is really a great way to kind of find, your own community there. Littlest big city in the world. Yeah, pretty much. And also everyone Reno tends to know each other. So when I meet someone that I don't know, it's like, wow. And then secondly, it's really about finding a creative process that works for you. And I basically say that all the time. Anyone who takes the workshop has heard me say that a bajillion times, but it's so true, because no two people have the exact same creative process. And what's fundamental about doing any sort of creative endeavor is figuring out how to not just start, but finish a creative project. And that is tricky. It takes practice. A lot of people have wonderful ideas, but actually, bringing that to fruition is hard. And I think if you can start with a good process and really hone that and practice it by tackling very, small and actionable, and specific projects, you'll be able to do any project that you set your mind to. You can be ambitious and still kind of keep your project scopes reasonable. So something that we really try to instill in people is that a creative process is not something you'll learn immediately, but you can emulate other people's processes. You can practice. You can do really kind of small and reasonable projects. We do a Write Your First D&D Encounter workshop. I would love to actually replicate that for our Call of Cthulhu community as well, because that's basically doing like a very simple one-page encounter, which not always that simple, but it's nice to have one very kind of specific thing that you can do, and then you can build upon that and do something a little bit more ambitious. So yeah, when it comes to the fundamentals for our community, we encourage, finding other people who enjoy the same things you do, being really giving and reciprocal with your time and what you're asking of people. If you can trade things to edit or proofread, or even just offer support, that really goes far with a lot of people. And then just giving yourself time to figure out what your process is, and really investing in that for yourself, because that's what will carry you through anything you do in your creative career.
That's great. And I want to dig in just a little bit. You mentioned sort of starting with small projects, manageable things. And if I remember right, there's a pretty narrow word count on the Write Your First scenarios, right? Was it about 3,000?
It's 3,500, which is very polarizing.
Yeah.
And it is a little tricky for that to be applicable across all game systems. That's based off of something that D&D writer MT Black recommended, because that you really can tell a lot of story in a one-shot adventure in 3,500 words. That said, we don't require people to stick to that exactly, but there's a lot of reasons we have that word count. One is that if you're brand new to writing, that is not necessarily a small, writing word count goal. If you've never written or finished a project, that's a decent amount. That also translates, to about maybe 8 to 10 pages in layout, which is not nothing. And if you're new to layout, that's, a whole process there. So you want to give yourself a project that is not, designing a 50-page one-shot adventure for your first adventure. And then also just like really thinking critically about, narrative and game design, and being very thoughtful about the words that you're using, and really tightening up your language, because in essence, adventures are technical documents. They're not short stories. They're not novellas. And so they really do need to be succinct and technical, and have a very clear outline for keepers to, effectively run at their table. So the word count is something we get lots of opinions and feedback about. And I agree that it is not a lot, but I think if you're really brand new, you'll feel so good to have something finished rather than having a 20,000 word adventure that you're halfway through and that you're now stuck on the layout phase because you've never done any of these steps before. So the one thing I can encourage is just at least try. If you feel like you're going over, that's fine, but just keep in mind that it's more than just the word count. You're doing the whole production process in our particular workshop. And you can always work up to longer adventures. Like our goal for you is that you go on to write your next adventure like immediately after that, and that one is 10,000 words, and then you work up to your whole custom campaign guide, and like we want you to be constantly building upon that.
And when you do get into larger projects and you're ready for when you realize that you need layout help, go watch yesterday's panel and see what they have to say about layout artists. And I'm going to transition very smoothly then into a question for Bob, because Ashley mentioned that scenarios are technical documents, and I think that's true, in that you have to communicate concisely. And I think that's especially important when you're writing for your own or someone else's use at a convention. Could you talk a little bit about what, sort of what makes a scenario successful in the kind of encounters that you have there?
Yeah, absolutely, Evan. Sure, thank you. It's very interesting because when I write a scenario, I have to consider who the audience is going to be, and not just the players who are on the receiving end, but who's going to be delivering the game. If it's and there's multiple facets to that. So if I'm going to be running the game, then I don't have to write quite as much detail into it because I have in my head how I want a scenario to do. My writing style is different than some of the other keepers in the group. I tend to write a game which is almost publishable, right? Almost publishable. And so that's just the way I spill out the content onto a page. Now, if it's going to be something where I'm going to have an assistant keeper with me, somebody who's going to be running NPCs, I have to flesh out those areas and drive them to that content more effectively. So I have to design the document with that in mind. So for me, and again, everything that I write has to be consumable within about 3.5 hours, right? Between the time we get characters delivered to the players, by the time we have to clean up to get them on to their next game, I have about 3 hours of content time. That's including a break in there. So I have to be very succinct and, really, deliver the high points very quickly, but also, it's really a luxury, right? So I know more or less there's constraints put in there naturally. The players aren't going to be able to go off on tangents and explore these things that they would be able to. We're not going to be able to take 3 weeks to explore this little village that we might want to if this was a home game. So, the design constraints there, are both pluses and minuses, right? So again, there's always going to be a certain extent of railroading in a convention game, right? It's just the necessity of the beast, right? The important thing about it is you have to make that journey, that railroad trip, magnificent, right? You have to make sure that everything along the way is something they want to see. They're not going to worry about something else. They're not going to be bored or want to go to the other scene because whatever's in front of them is where they want to go. So those are the sorts of things I keep in the forefront of my mind when I'm delivering a scenario. Also, I think about specific scenes that I can really bring to life, and I can bring in another NPC, another keeper to play that NPC that I'm going to have a conversation with, just so that the players can kind of see how this thing can all play out and really get, again, I keep always going back to it. I want to build that excitement and enthusiasm for playing the game, right? So again, that's something I can see right there on their faces as I'm delivering the game. I know whether I'm hitting it or not. And so, I know what the next beat I need to hit is. So I don't know if that's exactly what you're looking for, Evan, but that's kind of how I look at it. Game design is really, how to deliver, a 3.5 hour experience for the players, in a facade, if you will. There's not much depth behind the scenes, right? But along that path, there's a lot to do and explore.
Yeah, and that's I really love how you put that, one about the necessary constraints on time. And you're definitely right that a 4-hour slot is not really a 4-hour slot. It's a 3-hour slot with, setup and a break and cleanup. And also sort of the idea that a railroad, is perfectly fine as long as it's engaging.
Yeah.
And I think that's really critical. And we'll come back a little bit later when we talk about some challenges. We can talk about, I think each of you have introduced really interesting constraints, and I think we'll get some more now as I ask, writing for the stream, I think is something that is really new. I don't think I've seen any, no, that's not true. There has been, I think, one scenario on the repository, which was specifically written for streaming and then published to the repository afterwards. I think that was one of Cuppy Cup's scenarios. I can't remember the name
of Sorrow and Clay. Do you know, I think I've even got it here.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. So that was written by Graham Patrick.
Okay, right.
Who is outstanding. Yeah, he really is. That is a man in the know in this world, really. Deserves a panel on his own one day. I suppose the Playhouse is, but in fact, actually, just before we go into that, Bob,
Mhm.
you were just saying there about railroading and things like that. I think didn't Mike Mason literally say in a panel like yesterday or the day before about railroading is actually a natural part of what this is, and it's a
Mhm.
way to actually consistently keep the everything you were just saying there, Bob, is actually just quantifiable in terms of you need those railroadings there to, it's almost the bumper lanes when you're bowling, isn't it, to allow the investigators to have agency in between those bumper lanes.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was just listening to Bob going, yeah, absolutely. So sorry, Evan.
No.
So writing for the stream. So we've actually realized that writing, and we say writing for the Playhouse, that's not our intention. We are the Playhouse. People write things and we go, that's amazing, can bring it to us, we'd love to do something with you, and we'd love to pull in some people to play it. Either the person who wrote it might want to keep it, we might want to have a completely different keeper and give an idea of, if you're at home and you pick up a Miskatonic repository scenario and you go, right, well, how would I run that? It's an opportunity to listen to it, see it played out. It might be our current scenario that's on our kind of weekly release at the moment is the Yellow Death by Batu Bazoglu, and he hasn't listened to what we've done before it being released publicly. And so every week he's there on the YouTube channel just going, oh, I'm really pleased you found this, can't believe you did this, this is really interesting. So there is quite that nice unveiling within the community. But we have realized that with our main feed, those people that are writing and we're in contact with them and they're submitting their scenarios to us, which everybody is welcome to do. We get scenarios in, they go around the team. One of our resident keepers kind of goes, yeah, I like that, I like the sound of that, I'd like to run it. So the rest of us then ignore it, so that when we play it, we don't know what's going on, and we can kind of have a sense of honesty with that. But we've realized doing that and doing it to the level of editing that we're doing, we're probably only going to get out about 10 episodes a year, or 10 scenarios a year, sorry, because we've realized that the editing, the time, the way that it goes through, if we take 6 weeks on one scenario, because we like to really dig into the role playing and get a bit carried away, then it's going to take that long. So we've actually decided, and I suppose this is a little bit of an announcement, that we're opening 2 new kind of feeds to the Playhouse. We have our main channel, which will maintain this sense of, we're the Playhouse. If you submit to us and one of our resident keepers or guest keepers says, I'd love to run that, brilliant, on our main feed with that style. We're also opening our matinee feed, which does exactly what it says on the tin. It's our matinee feed. It's our mainly kind of audio podcast feed. So that's going to be us going, and here's a scenario, we really want to do it. It's an easier type of edit because we're not doing all of the video process to it. It's going to be released as an audio specifically. And we can get through more and more with that, because that won't necessarily need it won't necessarily need the attention that the others need, but it's still going to be a quality broadcast, because that's kind of what we pride ourselves on, and we've got an amazing kind of editing production team. So the idea is, with the matinee feed, we can get those things out. We've even, because we're absolutely nuts, we've even decided to open up a fringe feed. So our 3 channels are going to be, we've got the Playhouse feed, we're opening up the matinee, and we're also opening the fringe stage as well. The fringe is a little bit more backdoors, because obviously everything we're doing, and we have amazing editors, we're kind of going, right, what we want to do is essentially, we want to do more, but to do more, we might need a bit of support. So the fringe is the crazy stuff we do behind the scenes that might be a bit of a Patreon, Ko-Fi kind of thing that we're still kind of pinning down and we'll announce. But what we want to do in that is create something that the Storytelling Collective has inspired us to do. So Ashley, once again, you are responsible for things beyond your comprehension. Classic Ashley. It is that we want to have a space where, if you're writing your scenario, if you're in the Storytelling Collective, or if you're just writing independently and you go, do you know what, I've done this, I don't know if it's ready for publication, you can contact us, we can do a playthrough. You can contact us on our fringe feed. We'll send you a copy of the playthrough so you can listen to your game being played through without it being published. This is us doing it, behind closed doors. This is a service that we aim to provide, but also our promise to the community that we want to just get scenario after scenario after scenario out there is still accomplished with the main feed, which is our that's the one we spend a lot of time editing and putting out there, and our matinee feed, which is more of an audio podcast rather than just video as well. So in our attempt to just get as much out there as possible and get people to kind of go, this is my scenario, this is it being played, we think we're helping people maybe selling their scenarios, because they can go, if you want to buy it, have a listen to these guys, Keeper, and you might get an idea of how it can be run. But also, I think in the background of that, and especially, the market, the target market of people coming to us within this community is, we want to be better writers, we in the Playhouse, but we also recognize that that's exactly what the community wants. We kind of feel a little bit like a mirror for the community. We want to reflect those writers' needs by being better keepers, better players, and better writers, which essentially is kind of the same thing. We want to kind of reflect that back to the community. And I think the one thing we did recently to try and go, hey, look, we're doing this, is we kind of had a bit of a collaboration with the Storytelling Collective with Ashley, and we ran a competition, which was brilliant. We had so many people enter it, and we had two fantastic winners. We had Saturday the 14th and the Antediluvians, which were absolutely outstanding scenarios. In fact, all the scenarios we got were outstanding, and they've all been praised, and they're all going to go around. But we've actually just recorded, and it's going to be one of our matinee premieres. We've got, I don't know if it can say premieres, we've got a couple of premieres, but they are absolutely amazing. But Saturday the 14th, Rena Hensey's fantastic work there. We've recorded it, we've played it. I was very lucky enough to be in it, and that's going to be coming out soon. And we want to keep repeating this opportunity to the community, where they can say, when the Miskatonic Playhouse is not passive. We're here to be engaged with. We're here to be reactive. We're here to work with you. So yeah, we just kind of, I think we're just finding our feet on what we think will be something that takes over the world.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's you're a good way along the road there already. To dig in a little bit there, just I'm picturing sort of the poor beleaguered screenwriter, right? Like, half drowned in bourbon and staring at a bunch of crumpled up drafts, but
is that me? Is that a comment, Evan? Is that
maybe depends? I don't know your process, but it's I know that you've said you've picked scenarios largely based on, oh, this seems interesting to me, I want to run this. Are there things about the construction of a scenario, or even down to the writing, the layout of it, that work particularly well for your group when you're streaming it, when you're preparing to do an actual play? Sort of thinking about the difference between a manuscript and a screenplay even.
Yeah. Joe, I think Ashley hit the nail on the head earlier, which was when Ashley said, tell me if I'm wrong, Ashley, you said that when people are writing scenarios with the Storytelling Collective, there is a desire for them to recognize they're not writing stories, that they are writing these working documents, these technical documents, I think was the term you used. I think that's the reality, and I think that's something that we kind of recognize, and it's something actually I as an author myself recognize in my own writing, and had to a number of times when I was writing kind of pull back on and reframe. And even then I couldn't resist still putting in the classic D&D, the character says this in some of my own scenarios. So the telling a story versus I'm writing a technical document for a keeper to use and players to engage with, it's that I think that is a key aspect for what we do in terms of streaming, because the technical document gives the keeper the ability to have autonomy in telling that story, which then gives in turn the investigators, the players, the absolute, and this is the reason we all do it, this is what Bob was talking about earlier, it gives us the agency as players to enjoy it and bounce off those railroading bumper lanes to be able to tell our story. So I think that's what we look for. But again, the great thing about the Playhouse, and I can say that because I know the guys in the Playhouse, the guys and the girls in the Playhouse, really diverse. We're multinational, multi-gendered. We're in a place where we kind of go, who wants to do something like this? And it goes up, and then people jump in, voices from everywhere. There's a lot of people behind the scenes. We're very lucky that we have, for example, one example would be Phaedra Falou from The Stars Are Right. You know, she's fantastic. The Stars Are Right is an amazing podcast and you know, an amazing thing for people to engage with. And Phaedra is great because she's a part of the Playhouse as well. You know, she really adds a huge amount as to what our creative soul is. So we're very lucky in that respect that when something is presented, even if it is a little bit kind of story heavy based, which I am more than happy to kind of confess is maybe some of my writing. I'd like to think it is a technical document people can go with, but you know, it's a learning curve, as Ashley said. But I think it's an absolute truth that you know, the people that we've got at the Playhouse, there is a fantastic diversity there, which can say, right, scenarios come up, who can see the best in it? When we present it as well, our intentions are to present it in a fair light, because we want keepers to go, oh, I've listened to this and this is how I can play it. But we also want, because we're trying to promote the community to the community, to go, this is it, what we think in its best light. You know, we as the keeper and as the players feel like we've tried to get the most out of this, you know, handouts, role playing, etc., etc.
That's fantastic. Yeah, that's exciting. And Bob, I want to, I guess, go a little further there with the same kind of question. If someone is looking to you know, maybe they can't make it to join you at Gen Con or Gamehole Con, you know, if they want to do something at a local or regional con, you know, I imagine, I mean, to me anyway, it seems kind of daunting, right? I don't know how I would necessarily roll up to a con and say, I'm going to promote, you know, Call of Cthulhu and Miskatonic repository here, except for just trying to run a good scenario and hoping people have fun. But you obviously have a more sophisticated program than that. So, you know, can you kind of give advice for a person with goodwill, but perhaps less experience?
Yeah, it is a daunting task really to get started. And my gosh, you know, it's we've been doing it for a while. So I really have to kind of go in the Wayback Machine to figure out how it was for me to get started. And, you know, I think that the best thing to do is really to take advantage of some of the programs that exist right now. You know, Todd with Chaosium is running, you know, the Cult of Chaos. To get involved with the Cult of Chaos, they have scenarios that you can run at conventions and to kind of get your, you know, your foot in the door, so to speak. And you know, really, there's always going to be a degree of anxiety to go into a room full of strangers to sit down and run a game. You know, you know, fortunately, I've done it so much that I'm kind of numb to it. But I have to remember that it's not that way for everybody, and it really is a thing that, you know, you have to you know, have the wherewithal to do when you sit down in that seat to run a game for people. So, you know, again, the best thing that for a new keeper who's wanting to run games at a convention is just to do it. The repetition you'll get better with repetition. I was terrible when I started. I was ready to quit after my first session, but I kept at it. And so far, nobody has demanded that I quit. So I must be doing something right. So, you know, that's what I would say is, you know, just start off with a scenario that you're very comfortable with, you know, run it at a local game store. You can start there. You know, so start running. You know, the experience of running for strangers is different than running for your friends, right? You know, and it's you know, there's definitely you know, skills that you have to develop reading the table. You know, kind of seeing how people are receiving the content that you're doing, and you know, understand that, you know, you really have to read the scenario and put yourself in the player's shoes, and you know, how is this content that I'm delivering going to impact people, you know, positively or negatively, and to you know, be very reactive to that, and to make sure that you're delivering, you know, a scenario that's going to be engaging, but you don't want to step on anyone's toes or make anyone uncomfortable. So, you know, again, you have to be able to adjust that stuff on the fly, and you know, there's certain things that have not aged well, right? So you have to be able to you know, edit that stuff out, right, and make sure that you know, you're you know, not alienating people, but really, you know, bringing them in and creating, you know, a great experience for everybody, because we all just want to have fun doing this. So, you know, again, so to sort of your point, Evan, you know, start off small, start off with something you're familiar with, and just build up and keep the reps going, and it will get better and easier over time.
That's great. You know, you mentioned some amount of shyness a little bit, you know, or nervousness, and I think I want to ask a little bit about some of the challenges that people face when they come to work with you. What are some of the barriers or the big things that people struggle with, and then how do your groups help to help them to get over that. So, Bob, if there's more to say on that, have you been able to help people get over that reluctance?
Yeah, for again, one of the people I work with, Rachel, who's on the team, and she is, she was very, very new to gaming when she started working with us, right? She just started, playing a little bit of D&D and a little bit of Call of Cthulhu, but she's been with us since 2006, behind the scenes working on things. And so, she started to get involved with, things like that as a player, but not so much comfortable on the other side of the screen. But over the years, that's changed, right? So now Rachel is, very, very confident to run, to scenarios, to write scenarios, and she delivers, a totally different experience than other people on the team. So, again, you just have to continue, to work with people and to push them, but not pull them out of their comfort zone. You don't want to make somebody, really feel the pain, right? You just want to, have them take the steps they need at their own pace so that they are comfortable and, and build that confidence that they can do what they need to do. And so, it's great to see. And it's great to encourage in people, but that's the way it works for me. Just kind of that continual encouragement. Everyone works at their own pace, and just kind of do it like that.
That's fantastic. I want to just, as a timekeeping measure, we're about 48 minutes in. If there are questions, we usually start those at about an hour in. So if you're watching along and you're thinking, man, I'd love to do this, think about what the next level means to you, right? If you're observing the panel, where do you want to go in your writing, in your performing, in your community engagement? And then these are the folks to ask for how to get there. So if there are questions, we'll get to them, and if not, we'll aim for about an hour total, and then everybody can enjoy the rest of their Sunday. So Ashley, same thing. I'm gonna accentuate the word count limit, because that is a tool that I have gleefully used on people in my group projects, and they've hated me for it, but I think it's helped. So it's you're muted still, but what are some of the challenges you see there?
Yeah, well, definitely. Yeah, the word count. I can't stress enough that when you're first starting out, the limitations will help you be more creative. And that's something that I think is a little tricky for people to wrap their head around, because they're like, well, I have this amazing idea, but how am I supposed to do that in 3,500 words? And it's there's so much that goes into like basically bringing an idea to fruition. I will say there's in our community, we try to be really transparent about the struggles of being a creative. We're very much anti-hustle culture, which here in the US, that usually refers to people who are like, rise and grind. You got to get up at 4 a.m. and pound some coffee and then write every day for 4 hours and have this really like rigid lifestyle. And we are not about that at all, because our community we don't believe in that as being the route to successful, creative endeavors. And we really try to build programs that account for people's realistic, busy lives. I'm a new parent, and that has definitely stress tested my creativity. Thank you. And so it's in a way that's been, new insight for me on how we can, better support our community, because people are caretakers, people have jobs, people, have, health considerations, and there's so many reasons why creativity can be challenging. I think it can be very joyful, and I think if people can find joy in the creative process, in the joy of creating, and not just the finishing part where you're getting all the feedback from people and you can share that you have a project. So that's usually when people get that kind of boost of excitement, is like when they have something to share. And I want people to find that excitement internally, because I do think that when you're a writer, you're not always going to get wonderful feedback from people. You're not always going to get amazing reviews. And part of that is if you can find the confidence in yourself, in your own storytelling. It really starts within, and finding just, happiness in the process of creating, I think is just a fundamental thing if you want to be a working writer or a storyteller of any kind. So we try to be really transparent about the fact that writing is hard. And we try to help people find ways to get over those obstacles. And that is such an important part of the creative process, because it's inevitable that every writer will get stuck at some point of their project. And so being a writer who, successfully writes and publishes multiple works means finding ways to navigate around that. And so that's a big part of all of our programs is, here's a potential roadblock you may encounter. Here's some strategies for getting around that. Not every strategy will work for you. You might think some of our suggestions are ridiculous, but we're at least trying to give you a toolkit. And that's something that comes up a lot in our workshops, is forming your toolkit, having your brainstorming toolkit, having your, mental preparation for writing toolkit, making mood boards and playlists, and being excited and inspired about your project, and really sticking with it. And then part of that is also having a really reasonable project scope, because I think a lot of people have really wonderful, amazing ideas. And it's not that you can't do those ideas. It's just those ideas will never really get out of your head unless you can find ways to get them out of your head. And that sometimes means starting small and then building upon that. And I think that's a recurring theme with what we're all talking about here, is it's not that you have to stay small. It's, I think if you can think of every project you do as a building block, and not thinking of any one particular idea or project as the biggest, best thing you'll ever do, because it probably won't be until you do multiple projects. The more you write and publish and share and run games for people and get feedback from people, the better your creative work will become. And so when you start small, when you stick to those parameters, it allows you to be actually more creative, because you're being creative about the parts that actually matter, and not getting bogged down in the kind of the nitty gritty stuff that is really easy to kind of waste time on. And again, if you like all the nitty gritty stuff, that's fine. But we feel like in our community, a lot of people come to us because they're like, I've tried to write adventures before. So technically, write your first adventure doesn't always apply to everyone. Because they're like, I've tried to write adventures before, but I never can get to the finish line. And so we try to just give people strategies and sometimes coping mechanisms to really get to that point. And this was especially important, in 2020 when the pandemic started, because a lot of people really wanted to be creative and continue pursuing their creative goals, but we were all just kind of suffering worldwide with this collective trauma. And if anything, those difficult times in our lives are the kind of the best opportunities to build a creative process, because when you can build something to get you through really difficult times, then when you're having good, happy seasons in your life, then your process will already carry you through that, because you've already accounted for all of the potential roadblocks you may experience. So that's something that I just encourage all creatives to think about, is what is your project scope? What are the, and this is a whole lesson that we have in our workshop, like basically thinking through, like, what is your actual realistic time commitment that you can commit every day? It's different for every person. We can suggest how long we think things will take, but only you can really decide that for yourself. When you have a 7-month-old like I do, your time might not be as available as it might have been before you had a child. So those are all, but it doesn't mean that you can't write. It just means that your commitment to writing might be temporarily smaller. So your projects might have to be slightly smaller for that season in your life. And then, but it means you can still be creative because you're accounting for those things. So we just really encourage healthy attitudes toward productivity and writing. We don't really believe in laziness as like a concept. It's really just everyone has their own reasons for getting stuck on things. And the more support and encouragement you have, you can almost always navigate around that. And so we try to just give people as many tools as possible based on the hard lessons that myself and all the other instructors have learned trying to produce creative work. We're very honest about where we've made mistakes in our own careers and our own writing, and we try to offer that up as information so that other people can learn from it. Yeah, I'm sorry if I'm rambling.
No, not at all. No, that's great. Yeah, and then from the Playhouse perspective, either from writers who are working with you, or from people who are sort of trying to straddle the both worlds and write and perform, or support the streams. What are they struggling with? How are you sort of getting over that together?
So I think this kind of comes in a few different packages, kind of, I think resonating, but also kind of nodding along to what Ashley is saying there is, I feel lucky, Ashley. Not that I would change a moment of it, but my kids are 7 and nearly 5 now. So I get to the point where I kind of go, no, right, good night, guys. And that's the writing time. Similarly, I'm also a teacher, so in being in that teaching respect and having done the Storytelling Collective 3 times now, so regardless whether you're a first time writer, you just keep going. It's the addictive quality of the course. It's the accountability for me, actually. That's what it is, because when the kids go to bed, I go, I've got a month to get this done. So that's what it is for me. So I think, okay, so what in terms of that learning curve, so for me personally, it's all about storytelling, just in general. It's why I got into this whole gig in the first place. It's why I teach. I'm a drama teacher. But in terms of what I do and what the Playhouse does brilliantly, and I think leaning on what Bob was saying earlier as well about keeping and investigators, it's about dramatic tension. It's about rising tension. It's about suspense. It's about climax. It's about keeping those players going. So I think, and someone may well post and go, no, Newman, that's not what you do. But I think what we do is we show scenarios and we show them how certain moments of those scenarios can be done. And it's a little bit like when you watch a movie or you read a book or you listen to a podcast. We all have our favorite podcasts and things, different groups and stuff that we listen to. We take the best bits and we evolve it and we absorb it. And then we reappropriate it, and we I think someone put in the chat earlier the word tailor. We tailor it to our own needs, and I think that's kind of what we offer. We offer something that can do that. But there is more in terms of what the Playhouse does, and I think there's more in terms of what we can offer in the future. We're always open to the community saying, "Can you do this? Could you do a backstage chat on someone about." Specifically writing about the roller coaster of emotion, rising tension, holding suspense, and delivering a climax. Could you do a backstage chat on that? Yeah, sure, of course we could. We just need someone to say, could you do this? And then we'll do it. But even one of our own team the other week, and I've been keeping for a hell of a long time, but I think what we do is we recognize that our own practice and everybody's practice is a continually evolving thing. So one of our own team the other week, who's a great keeper, great writer, John Hedge Hall, we kind of contacted him and said, doing this, give me some feedback. And quite brilliantly, I was able to sit there. I felt very lucky that I was able to get this very reflective feedback about my style, because obviously podcasting and the YouTube video, the stream, is different to the way you'd keep at home. It's different to the way, if I went to a convention and keep, which I'm planning to do hopefully in the future, in this coming year, it's a different skill set. So I think within the community, what we want to offer and what we want to do and what we want to be able to teach, but also get then better people than us in to teach via the Playhouse and go, what do you want to learn? Tell us. This is what the community should be. It should be someone going, I'd really like to know about this. And then somebody else going, I can tell you about that. And then us going, let's put you together and let's film it and let's put it out there. So everybody else who's sitting there who hasn't asked those questions, but has them, can see it, watch it, absorb it and benefit from it. And I think we just try our very best to make the community the strongest it can be. And we keep reflecting and developing and evolving that practice, because I think, as everybody's kind of said a number of times here, we're all doing this because we love it.
Yeah, very good, very good. All right, so I think the key takeaway that I got from that was either have very, very little children who sleep all the time, or very much older children who respect your boundaries. That was the main point that I took away. No, I have a 9-year-old and a 5-year-old, and they just got home, and I'm consider myself very blessed that no one's karate kicked the door open yet. So
I'll just say, Evan, sorry, apologies. I'm just literally going to say, the other day, obviously for something upcoming that we all kind of know about, I happen to be doing an interview with Andrew Peregrine, right? Never spoke to the guy. Amazing, lovely. I was so excited to sit down with him, and with the upcoming Regency announcement from Chaosium, the book that's coming out on the 27th. So excited, like uncontrollably excited. And I just had my son. He was off school that day because he was poorly. So I'm talking to Andrew, and I'm going, brilliant, amazing. Just 1 second. He wasn't ill. I mean, he was ill, but all he wanted to do was ask me about the computer game he was playing and going, Daddy, you've said you're going to be 30 minutes in the workshop. Can you help me do this level? I'm like, come on, man. I'm talking to Andrew Peregrine. Yeah. So I think it's finding those boundaries, as Ashley said. It's finding those limits that we all have as individuals.
Yeah. And it's making peace with your availability and the schedule that works for you, and just recognizing that where you are in your life, there are certain things that are going to be okay, and certain things that you can only make yourself crazy by trying to do. It's a hard thing.
I gotta share one thing real quick. My son, 13, is going to game hole with me for his 3rd year in a row, and he's going to be helping me run games.
That's awesome.
That's the future. That's the future,
dream,
guys. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good. All right. Yeah. So I just, we did have a couple of questions. So I'm going to introduce those. I'll start with Heinrich had one question for everyone. And I'm going to, I'll just put that out there, and it may develop on its own. So he asked, what resources are missing in the Miskatonic repository community that folks who want to take on a project such as the Playhouse might want to think about tackling? So Heinrich, if I'm understanding this correctly, you're sort of asking where are the market gaps that somebody might fill with a project. Is that right? Like, we didn't know that there was a need for something like the Playhouse or U2 Cthulhu or the collective until they appeared and people flocked to them, right? So where do you guys see some unmet needs out there?
I will promise to be quick and jump in on this. I actually think Heinrich's question is I actually think Heinrich and Evan, yourself, Bridget, the Shoggoths might already be the answer, but perhaps there needs to be a bit more I suppose publicity with it, or engagement with it. There is the list of community support that Bridget often kind of Bridget of Symphony Entertainment, and obviously Councillor Shoggoths, that she will quite regularly kind of say, hey, there's a list, update this list, and that is a list of illustrators, editors, layout artists, editors, copy editors, line editors. I have yet to add myself to that in an editing capacity because I'm just selfishly writing my own stuff, but it's going to happen in the near future. But there is a document there that exists that the Shoggoths have created, and I think it's an amazing document, and I often look at it, and I know that some of my fellows, not within the Playhouse, just within the Miskatonic repository community, I know they're on there, and I know also that some of my other friends, they have engaged with it, and they've commissioned artists. There's even people on there that aren't, they might even trade their services, so it's not always about, I'm an artist, or I'm a layout specialist, or I'm an editor. Obviously, pay me for my services. They are very valuable services, and there is a transaction there to be had. But the transaction sometimes is there, and there is an option on there to look at someone, and they go, okay, well, I'm a layout artist. I'll look at your scenario and suggest, or even do your layout for you. But in return, what could you offer me? And it might well be that you offer them a play test, or a line edit, or a hotel B&B for a weekend in your house when you're on holiday. I don't know, but I think that is an invaluable resource, that document that is there. And hopefully, Evan, apologies, if maybe you could post it in the chat after this so that people have access to it.
I'll ask someone to grab it. My keyboard's very loud, so I'm trying to...
But I think that is a resource that everybody can access.
Yes. And I'm actually gonna throw a small bomb into the proceedings, because I think one thing that we're missing, right? I think you'll notice the physical quality of the scenarios has been increasing over the years. There's becoming an expectation for quality layout, for good art, for a well-edited piece. But that costs, and we're doing this for a hobby, and we don't always expect to make it back. So I think one gap is somewhere between the creators helping creators file on the Facebook group and somewhere between Nick Brooks running list of scenarios and how well they sell. Someone with a business degree is going to do well for themselves, maybe pro bono, but is gonna offer an enormous service by helping people figure out how to afford to make stuff of the quality that's becoming expected on the repository. And that's a whole, we didn't do that panel this year. I think the business of the repository is a panel for next year. It's becoming a fun challenge, an interesting challenge, and something to really think about if one of your next level goals is, okay, I don't want to quit my job to do this, but also I'd like to, make enough that I can buy the next Chaosium book with the proceeds. So I'm gonna stash that question away for next year. And
Can I
we'll
just,
come back. Yeah.
we have noticed, just purely, I'm guessing coincidentally, the moons, the stars are right, should I say? Phaedra, you're welcome. The scenarios that we're very lucky enough to put on the Playhouse, obviously because they're going out to a wide audience, there is obviously an element of advertising with that.
Yeah.
Wasn't intentional, because obviously the idea is, here's a scenario, everybody check it out, and we're going to do this with loads. But I think it's fair to say that when a scenario is put on the Playhouse, especially the main feed, and what we're hoping to be our matinee feed, is that there is a, as you would expect, a natural spike in sales, and also just interaction, that people go, I've seen that, I've heard that, I'll give it a go.
Yeah. And I think we'll, one of the other panels next year, I think maybe even with this same group, is leveraging, some of the publicity through the Playhouse and the marketing and branding workshop, which I've been going through on the Storytelling Collective. And we'll talk about that side too, right? It's suddenly you realize, oh my God, people know me for certain things, and now I'm developing a brand if I want to or not. How do I deal with that? So we'll put that aside too, unless one of you is going to suggest, Ashley, perhaps, that an unmet need is marketing and publicity help.
Yeah, I mean, I think that for creators, independent creatives, that's always kind of an obstacle. There's a lot of ways to, market your own work, whether that's your published work or your actual play show. I think Chaosium does a wonderful job of really trying to highlight the community, and I really love that about them, because I know that does bring a lot of eyes to people's work. So yeah, I think any opportunities for people to just help independent creatives just get their work out there and plan out marketing and things like that. It really, I really enjoy that aspect of creative work, because it's creative in its own way, but it's very time consuming, and I think that is a big struggle for people. And sometimes there is a monetary investment that you need, depending on some of your goals there, running advertisements and just the marketing collateral that a lot of people need to kind of meet their goals as creatives. So yeah, I think resources for that would do very well. There's a lot of, I think, options for that. And I think that actual play shows are such a wonderful way for people to get into tabletop. I think what Miskatonic Playhouse is doing is totally filling a void. There's been, other, streams and things like that, but I think just really committing to playing Call of Cthulhu content and showing people what that looks like. I know for me, like with D&D, there was, a lot of actual play content to watch to really learn how to facilitate a game. Because if all you've really seen, like I used to read the D&D books at the library when I was a kid, but I had never I didn't know really what a game looked like, how to facilitate that. And that's a big obstacle for a lot of people, is you just don't really, you kind of know in theory what it's supposed to be, but really seeing that, it also makes it look so fun to see people really get into it, and just the storytelling involved in that. So I think that I'm hoping that more folks will really, invest the time and production quality like the Playhouse is doing. So I would say that those are definitely the big things. And yeah, also agreed that any services like editing and layout and art, there's not a lot of stock art for Call of Cthulhu writers. A lot of our writers in our adventure program, they struggle to find, there's a lot of fantasy stuff, but there's not really a lot for all the different types of adventures that people are writing for Miskatonic. So yeah, if you're a stock artist looking to really have a good niche, I bet you could really find a lot of opportunities in the Call of Cthulhu community. So those would be my things there.
Yeah, stock art for sure. That's, you know, we're fortunate in that the public domain window is slowly moving across the 20s, so things are becoming available that are relevant. But good art, you know, is needed and hard to come by without dancing on some questionable copyright lines. Another thing that came to me, there used to be, I want to say it was called Starter Kit, but there was like an AP program that ran like introductory adventures for different systems. And I think something like the Playhouse, which is sort of an anthologized thing, has an opportunity to do essentially, right, the actual play version of the starter set, where you take a straightforward adventure and you talk the keeper through it. Like, this is what we're doing. This is what we're reading in the scenario, and this is how we're translating it to the table. So it's a real nuts and bolts. Like, they're going to learn, because that's how I learn. I cannot run a system until I've seen someone play it. I just can't do it. It's a block in my brain. So I think that kind of hand-holding for new keepers, and in a video form, or probably video is probably best, in a video form, is something that would really go over pretty well, I think.
Is that a request, Evan? Is that
yeah,
a
I guess
formal
it
request?
is. You know, if you want to run Edge of Darkness or whatever, you know, and do it in a keeper oriented specifically way.
Do you know, I'd be really interested if we looked at one of the Miskatonic repository scenarios that we kind of went, this would be a really good intro into it, because obviously we want to promote our authors and we want to promote any, you know, those guys going through that are putting the time in. But that nuts and bolts thing, I have no doubt that my editing team right now is going, what are you doing? But I think, Evan, that's a brilliant idea, and I think that the team would just go, yeah, that would be amazing. And I think it's fair to say, just because I've seen it in the post, the RPG Nook, they do that as well.
Okay.
And they actually do it really, really well. So I think that's worth shouting out for anybody that's listening as well. The RPG Nook, they actually look at that, and they do break things down like that as well, which is absolutely fantastic. But I'm still going to take that as a formal request, Evan.
It is. And
put that to the team.
Al has posted in the chat that he still does not understand the chase rules, and I don't think any of us do, honestly.
In his own scenario.
You know, we had Paul here the other day. That was our chance to clarify chase rules for once and for all, and we missed it. So they will remain a mystery.
Fricka.
And Bob, you know, do you have any thoughts on what's missing? What's an unmet need?
Gosh, you know, it's really interesting to hear you all comment about this, because you know, this it seems like there's such a wealth of talent, and there's such a warm and welcoming community that is willing to help each other out. You know, I think that the ideas that have been expressed really cover most of the bases, and I certainly really don't have anything else to add. But just the idea, I love the idea of bringing one of these scenarios that you've mentioned that's going to be one of these hot scenarios. I would love to run one of these scenarios at a convention, right? And, you know, get more people exposed to it. It's something I've tossed around, the ideas of, you know, either having an author who's, you know, interested in running a scenario, you know, work with us, or if somebody is really, you know, thinks that their scenario, this scenario would be great, you know, pitch it to me, and, you know, we can make it happen. It would just be a great opportunity to, you know, increase the coverage and the exposure.
Yeah. And I think, you know, one thing that I've seen done for, I think someone did it for 7th Sea, but they kind of had a similar desire to help new keepers or GMs, I guess, run it at conventions. And so they put out as a product just a pack of like printable name cards, rule summaries, like a little convention GMs or keepers pack. So things like that, if you don't, you know, if they don't all have to be scenarios, right? They could be tools, they could be other supplements that sort of directly assist people to do what you want to do. Sorry, I'm getting all these ideas now. It's very exciting. And I'm going to throw one more bomb, which is that, you know, Newman, you've mentioned the value of the diverse group in the Playhouse. Certainly in the Storytelling Collective, the diversity of both the instructors and the participants there is tremendous. I think that's still an area where we are hoping for it to happen organically.
Yeah.
But I think the person who comes up with a systematic way of making Miskatonic Repository attractive to a more diverse audience and elevating those folks, and not latching on to any given person and say, you're a representative of your diversity group, please help us grow it for them. You know, I think that's something that Chaosium is interested in. I've certainly, you know, I think they're on board. There's an attention being paid to it that didn't used to be. but I think not to be a bummer, but I think that's a place where that we haven't found the key to that lock yet.
I think you're right. Chaosium they have taken fantastic kind of steps in that direction. 100%. More so than other, shall we say, big tabletop role playing companies. But there's loads that we can do. And I think we might even be not we the Playhouse, we the community. I think we might be the secret to that, to unlocking that door, because we are the community.
Yeah.
So when we look at the community and we think about reflecting who's in the community and how we represent that level of diversity, it's we're the answer. We're the answer. I mean, I think in the Playhouse, we have a little bit of a kind of reflection of that, in that, as I mentioned at the start of this, I'm very lucky to be the host of the Playhouse. And I think it's because at the start I went, I'm a teacher and I'm a drama teacher, so I'm happy to speak in front of people. That they went, right, Newman, you do that. We'll do all the important stuff, and you just say what we want. I was like, yeah, cool, okay. But the matinee feed we're bringing out, it's not something that's going to be presented by me every week, because the point is that anybody within the kind of our little community, they can contact us. We can kind of, obviously there's quality checks and things, but what we'll do is we'll kind of say, right, you want to run something and you want to run this scenario, and it could be one of our keepers with a branch of brand new players, whoever it is, wherever it is, whenever it is, whoever's online, we can put that together. As long as our concern is about making sure we get a bit of quality out there, because we want to represent people's hard bloody work that they've done, that they've spent time on. As Ashley was talking about, the time commitments that people really go for and the pride we have in our scenarios when they come out. We want to reflect that for the individual author, and we want to make sure that the players and the keepers have a great time. But we are presenting something with the matinee in the Playhouse where we're kind of going, just doesn't matter who's keeping it. It's not me. It's not Newman. It's you. It's you playing it. Get in touch with us. Tell us what you want to do. Tell us what you want to see. And I think, in my humble opinion, and it is humble because I don't have the answers, but I think, Evan, the community is the answer, because there is an amazing diverse community out there. And as much as we need to get better at kind of saying, right, let's diversify the community, it's there. There are people there. We just need to give opportunity. And I have to say, I think one of the most proactive people in our community at kind of announcing that is Bridget Jeffries. She is an absolute workhorse in making sure that our community is diverse. And if it's not diverse, she often will grab it by the shoulders, shake it, and say, why aren't you more diverse? And then it is, because she's amazing. She's quite a wonderful human person. So I think the community is the answer.
And I think for YouTube and Cthulhu, right? I mean, I think that's, in some sense, right, that's where it starts, is getting out and meeting new people.
100%. I mean, again, it's we always try very, very hard to just make sure that everybody at that table has a great experience, because it really, that's the way we do it, right? I mean, it's a very one-on-one experience for us, and but really that touches people, and it gives us a chance to really connect. And we want everybody who comes to our game to feel like they're included, and that they're important, and that they have a place at that table, and that they this game and this system is something that can be for them.
Yeah, and I think I don't know that we have time to do it now, but I think at some point in the future, right, it's worth revisiting what are the things that you can do at your table to make it more welcoming. What are the things you should be aware of that you may unconsciously do that make it less welcoming? And those are both key, and probably the subject of, well, we're gonna have a lot of panels next year. Sorry, Heinrich, it's just all panels, just 25 hours straight of panels. And we have got time. I'm going to adapt one other question that we have here. We've talked about how how individual participants in your groups can grow. How do you want to grow? What's next for let's start with the collective. What's if you're, feel free to share certain things, but where do you want to go in the near future?
Yeah, we have so many plans. It's very exciting. It really, all the things that we want to do are possible because people just enjoy our programs, and they give us ideas for what we can do next. When it comes to the Call of Cthulhu community. I would love to be able to offer kind of like next level courses for writers. A lot of our programs right now are very introductory. That's definitely like what intentional. We want to give a good introductory point for writing and creative process in adventure design. But I would love to be able to expand our curriculum for Call of Cthulhu specifically and offer more kind of courses specifically around that and get a little bit more into the game theory and things like that. I would love to have Paul do more lessons for us. He's been amazing to work with. So, I mean, maybe we'll tap him to do another course. We really are eager to get our Write Your First Adventure workshop translated into other languages.
Okay.
We know there's there's big communities around the world. So we're hoping to get it translated into Japanese, into Spanish, and there's been some other requests as well. So we're hoping to really just offer our curriculum in, different languages, which I think would be really cool. And yeah, we have a lot of new programs coming next year. We'll be adding more paths to our Write Your First Adventure workshop for other game systems. So if you're eager to continue writing and learning about that, then stay tuned. And yeah, we're getting ready to celebrate the 10th round of Write Your First Adventure in November, which is really exciting. Feels like a big milestone for us.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of plans, some stuff I probably can't talk about yet, but that's the stuff I can talk about. So we plan to do a lot more with Miskatonic Repository, with Chaosium. We've absolutely just loved working with the community and with Chaosium in general. And we know that they hopefully want to do more with us and we want to do more with them. So if you ever have any requests for programs or courses, we want to do like a book club as well, where we basically read an adventure module and have discussions about it and really kind of pick it apart and really study it from that perspective, because that's another thing that I think is kind of missing in the tabletop community in general, is taking that kind of academic literary experience that I, as a former English major, used to love, and applying it to adventure modules and really like figuring out what works and what doesn't work in officially published work. Yeah. So that is something that we also really want to do. So if you're interested in helping us facilitate that, you can always get in touch with us.
Yeah. So what's going to happen is, right, you and Newman and I, and maybe John with his technical writing experience, we're just going to sit down and do that. And it's going to be great.
Perfect.
Yeah. And Bob, what's next for You 2 Can Cthulhu? You 3 Can Cthulhu, I guess, is the next iteration after that.
I don't think I'm quite there yet, but hey, I am going to tell you one thing. I'm not getting any younger, right? And I would like to have some younger GMs join the group. That's what I would really love to have. I want to get some new ideas and some new people involved because, again, it's, we need to be able to prepare for the next generation. My son's not there yet, but there are other people out there who are. So that's what I would really like to get, is a couple younger GMs to join the crew and really to walk them through the paces of what it takes to do this. And again, of course, it would allow us to grow as well and to put on more scenarios and do more things. So, maybe even an international branch or something like that, but that's what I would like to do. I would like to take advantage of the great community that you've all fostered by getting a little younger.
Yeah. Yeah. And oh, okay. Al wants to know, should people outside of the capture areas for the cons that you usually go to, should they contact you for, if they live in other parts of the country?
Yeah, I mean, it's worth a conversation. I mean, really, again, what we do is centrally focused around the Midwest, but I mean, again, there's ideas on how we could do it outside that area as well, right? I mean, I would love to travel. As I've stated, I'm getting, my kids are getting older. I'm not as tethered to as I once was. So there are options for me now.
Great. Yeah, and what's next in the Playhouse? You've mentioned, some of the plans. Anything else you want to bring up?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we're very actually really pleased to be announcing, I think, here for the first time actually, that we're doing a matinee feed. Exclusive. And that we're doing a fringe feed as well, and more information on that is to come out, because we want it to be very accessible by the community. So we want to make that really explicit and really obvious what that is. But I think also, and this is the brainchild of one or two of our actual members, where they've kind of said, well, look, and community members, these are community members. I think that's the thing we need to recognize. The Playhouse is community. That was the point of the Playhouse, is that we're community, reflecting community. But I think, we want to be in a place where I guess similar to what Ashley's saying a little bit, but maybe it's in the post product kind of stage as opposed to the pre product or the actual, the writing the product kind of stage, where we want to be, I guess, creative consultants. We want to be, play testers. We want to be a resource that the community can go to and go, I need help. They might even come to us and say, I need help, but I don't know what the help is. And then we go, do you know what? Let's see what we can do. And I think that's kind of what we want to be. We want to be responsive to the community. So I think the future for us is, if the community says, we'd really like this, I think we're in a position to say, as a team, can we do it? Can we do it?
Yeah.
Okay, we've got the capacity. Let's do it.
Yeah.
And in the short term, that kind of request from the community, and it has come from the community, that has manifested as the matinee feed, which is trying to get more material out there, because people are going, look, we all want to submit our stuff to the Playhouse and get it on the Playhouse. And we're kind of going, great, 10 episodes a year with the rate we're going.
Right.
But yeah,
Well, at least you've got content for the next decade.
Oh,
right?
absolutely. I think we're good till about 30, 44. But no, that's still like, but we have got amazing, people, members of the community submitting their work. We want to be in a position where that work goes out because they deserve it. And that's the point. But we also want to be able to play, and that's the Fringe channel. So anything that the community wants, it's about getting in touch and using that community voice.
Fantastic. Thank you all very much. I am excited to work with you all again. I'm excited to work with other collaborators. National Novel Writing Month is coming up, which we are going to hijack for our RPG writing purposes. There's so much to learn from each of you, so much to do together. Please reach out to any of our panelists. Do you want to tell us how folks can reach you? Playhouse, I guess, first.
I mean, we have our Discord channel, which you're very welcome to kind of join us, and there is any number of quite unique conversations going in there at any one time. But the main way to get in contact with us is www.miskatonicplayhouse.com, where you'll find our webpage, and from there you'll find our Discord, our YouTube, our podcasts, and any kind of communication with us that you'll need.
Fantastic. And YouTube and Cthulhu?
Again, owing to the fact that I'm very old, we have a Facebook page, Facebook, YouTube, and Cthulhu. You can reach us there. That's probably the best place to reach us.
I'm a Facebook primary person myself, so I feel
There we go.
arthritis is acting up today. Ashley, for the collective?
Yeah, you can visit storytellingcollective.com. You can also go to rpgwriterworkshop.com. It all goes to the same place. We are on Twitter at storytellingcol. And then we're on Instagram, similar. I just look up Storytelling Collective on all social media. We're pretty much there. And I also just want to give my email out in case anyone just wants to chat with me directly. You can email hello@storytellingcollective.com, or my personal email is ashley@scribemind.com. And that's just, if you want to chat about writing or anything like that, you're welcome to email me. And then our team will kind of helps me moderate our team email address as well.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it.
All right. Fantastic. Thank you. We'll see you on the Discords. We'll see you on Facebook if you're above a certain age, and we'll see you around. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Thanks, Evan.
Thank you.